Have you ever wondered why you continue in the same timeline, even though it isn't where you'd like to be? Welcome to Tools to Manifest Your Dream Life with myself, Glenyce. Thank you so much for being here. I am so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. Now, this episode and my last episode about parallel possibilities are both an invitation to my upcoming 3-part series, Parallel Possibilities, Activating Your Highest Timeline, July 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 2026. Of course, everyone registered will receive the recordings, and it is all about this, how you can change your current timeline into activating your highest timeline, the one that is everything that you've been dreaming of and more. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link to the Parallel Possibilities episode is linked above. If you're listening to this on another platform, you can check out the show notes for that link. But basically in it, I shared how I was operating from the timeline of always choosing economy to choosing the timeline where I could choose first class. And that whole experience for me was really recognizing that there was a million, maybe bazillion other possibilities available that I'd never considered. I'd only considered for a while that economy was it. If I was going to travel, I could only afford economy and there was no other possibilities. But by switching that timeline and activating my highest timeline, it changed everything for me because I recognized I was doing it in many areas of my life. And today's show is about how to actually live from your highest timeline. And this is one that I have spoke about in many different ways over many different shows. And I'm going to speak about it again. And hopefully we can all start to really change this for ourselves. And if you notice, I said we, because I am not teaching you something that I am a pro at. I am sharing information that I am hoping will inspire all of us to choose even more every day. I work with many clients every day, and often they will tell me that the reason that they don't have what they would like is because they don't know what they would like. And when we look at specifics, that can easily be true, because if you ask someone what they would like their life to be like, it's a really, really big area. But if you were to narrow it down and ask someone what they would like their finances to feel like, they can usually tap into that energy quite easily. Maybe they would like an overflow. Maybe they would like the energy of abundance. Maybe they would like more. Maybe they would like expansiveness. Usually we can tap into that quite quickly. So it usually isn't that we don't know what we want. What it usually is that we stay on that one timeline that isn't what we would like it to be. So again, using the example of money, if you have struggles with money and there's never enough and there's a lot of drama around it, a lot of upset, and there has been probably your entire life in some way, shape, or form, what happens is we have a really solidified timeline and we end up creating that over and over and over. That's why often those same energies are present. So maybe growing up, there were struggles with money, and then you personally as an adult have struggles with money. It's because of that timeline that we've really solidified. And how do we do that? How do we solidify a timeline? We talk about it. We think about it. We think about it from the problem. We are in the energy of that heaviness, of that struggle, of that upset, of whatever it is. And we're in it, and we continue to be in it from that energy, from that talking about it and sharing about it and posting about it and talking to other people who have similar so that they get it and we get each other. It's how we stay on that timeline, even though we know we want something different. We know we want something better or higher or more expansive, whatever it may be, but we continuously stay in that energy of how bad it is, how wrong it is, how awful it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that you could do if you're like, I don't know if I do that, Glenyce, I'm pretty in tune. I want you to start making a note on your phone or a piece of paper or whatever you would have with you all the time. And every time you are in the stuckness, in that solidified timeline, thinking about it, talking about it, sharing about it, whatever it is, I want you just to write it down. And you could just write 2 words about what you're talking about, and you could maybe put struggles about paying a bill, whatever the date is, June 29th at 10 a.m. And then continue to do that throughout the day, not from judgment. This is where you're doing it from awareness, where you just want to start to become aware of how much energy you put into staying in that timeline that you don't desire. And so I want to reiterate that you aren't allowed to do that if you're going to judge yourself. This is truly just research so that you can start being honest with yourself about how much time you are continuously solidifying the timeline that you don't desire. Now, I also don't mean that you need to pretend everything is perfect. This isn't about pretending or bypassing, but it is recognizing that your thoughts, your words, your energy is how you create. And when you have space in your day and your mind wanders to how much of a struggle money is or how you'll never pay that bill, then that's what you're creating more of. It's more of that timeline that we were talking about. So what else could you do with your thoughts at that point? And this is where I love questions. And I also love afformations. So not affirmations, but afformations. I've talked about them many times on this podcast because I know how powerful they are. So what it is basically where you're asking a question of what you would already like. And so let's say you catch yourself, you're playing in the drama of struggle with money. Then you basically ask a question, the opposite of that. So why does money always come so easily to me? Why is money so easy for me? Why does money show up in my bank account every day? Like you start asking those questions. The reason that we do this is because our brain is constantly searching for answers. When we ask a question, whether we ask it verbally or energetically, our brain starts going to work, which is why when you start looking at red sports cars, suddenly you see a lot of red sports cars. It's our RAS, our reticulating activating system. So when we're asking, why is money so easy for me? Why does cash show up in my bank account every day? Our brain will start looking for those possibilities and prove us right. It's been proving us right when we're going, money's a struggle, money's so hard. It's the same energy. We're just going to start utilizing it for us as opposed to against us. And so that is one really quick way to shift that energy. Once you recognize that you're in the heaviness, you're in the solidifying of the timeline you don't desire, go to question, go to affirmations. And if affirmations feel like too much of a stretch, like why does cash show up in my bank account every day? Then you could ask a question of, universe, show me how cash can show up in my bank account every day. So you're turning it into more of a question of curiosity rather than a question of it's happening already. So really just paying attention to yourself, because if you notice when you say the affirmation of why does cash show up in my bank account every day, that you contract and you get really icky, then that's not the question for you. So then maybe turning it to, universe, show me how cash can show up in my bank account every day. It's a baby step compared to the affirmation. And you'll notice some affirmations you can say really easily, and some you'll need to change to questions. And that's fine. Again, nothing is judgeable, but you want to recognize that you need to pay attention to you so that you can perceive which one will actually work in that moment. One of the things that I talked about in the previous episode was being the version of you that has that. And that's ultimately how we get to that highest timeline, is that we start being that version. So again, using the example of money, let's say that you would like to be a person who has ease with money, who has lots of money, who has peace with money, then that is the person that you need to choose to be now. Even though that might not be your current reality, the way to shift it, the way to shift up to that higher timeline is for you to choose that now. And how do you choose it? By not choosing the heaviness and the struggle and the stuckness of that other timeline that doesn't work for you. You start asking the questions, doing the affirmations, going into the space, imagining, taking 5 minutes a day, imagining yourself as someone who has ease and peace and lots of money. What would that be like? What would you look like? What would you do? How does that show up differently? You're tapping into that future version of you, and you're being them now. And that is the tenacity that we need so that we don't get stuck in the old, or if we do catch ourselves in the old way or the old timeline, we change it. The moment we recognize it is the moment we change it. And again, we can do it through questions, affirmations, sometimes just going out in nature, switching where you are at physically, taking a moment. If let's say you're with a group of people and everybody's talking about the struggle of money, maybe it's time to go home. And you don't need to say a word to them about why you're going. You could just say, oh guys, I'm feeling tired, and go home. They're not wrong to have that conversation. And it's not about separating from people or fighting with them or telling them they should have it different. It's just recognizing what you need in that moment to stay that version of you who has what you already desire. So right now, just think of an area of your life that you would like to activate to the highest timeline. Just kind of tap into that, whether it's money or relationships or body or career, business, whatever it is. Just tap into that one area, take a moment, close your eyes, as long as it's safe to do so. Just get a sense of that area and where you're at in the timeline right now. Now, tap into the version of you who has what you would like, who is living that highest timeline with regards to that area. Just tapping into her or him energetically, becoming aware of that version of you that is living a parallel possibility. It just happens to be living the highest timeline with regards to this. And just tapping in energetically, what do they know that you haven't acknowledged yet? What have they stopped doing that's allowed them to be in that highest timeline? What are they willing to receive that you haven't been willing to receive? What would they choose on a daily basis that you haven't been willing to choose? And then if there's a question that you have for them, take a moment right now and ask them. Now ask, where is this version of me? And just remembering all of these questions are energetic. So you may not receive an awareness that you can formulate. It is energetic, and allow it to be that. Now you can go through that every day for the next 7 days or longer if you like, just to really remind yourself that there is a version of you who is living that highest timeline, who is living what you could only dream of right now. And your only job is to, well, maybe a couple of jobs. One, to stop solidifying the current timeline, which isn't where you would like to be, and start being that version of you now. Now, if this has sparked interest, I would love for you to join us in the Parallel Possibilities Activating Your Highest Timeline 3-part series, July 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 2026. Link is above or below. If you can't see a link, reach out. If you're listening via podcast, it's in the show notes. But again, just reach out. I'm happy to get it for you. Have a great week, sweet friends. I look forward to chatting again soon.